In the last few weeks, I've had conversations with several people where um, the conversation is about the relationship not going well and how do we get to a different spot, and then here are our issues. And in those relationships, there's a lot of hard things going on. um, Things like distance happening, disconnect happening, um, people staying upset, not talking to each other. And so these things are happening in a relationship, and there's been a common theme that goes on in these relationship situations. And I wanted to get to a point where we can talk about some of these things that are actually happening. And so here's what it is: it boils down to how much pride and the mistakes you're making because of pride um, that are causing you so much trouble. And so, my plug today for you guys is just let's look at some of these situations and see if we can get better at them. It's going to be up to you to say, like, man, that's me, and I got to get better at it, because it is definitely ending in situations that are causing your marriage harm. It might not initially, you might be thinking that you're teaching your partner a lesson, and trying to prove something and or trying to get them to behave a certain way, and so you're not going to do the next thing until they do the next thing. But it's damaging your marriage. It's making sure that you aren't going to experience the things that you need to experience. So I think that the important piece here is that you really focus on, how do I get better. And so that's what we want to try to talk about is how you get better at it. Well, let's look at our mistakes first. So the first thing that I'm seeing that's happening is, um, man, you're not willing to apologize. And so when you're not willing to apologize or to accept responsibility, um, or even if your apology is like, well, I'm sorry, but right, even when it's those kinds of scenarios, you're still going to cause harm to your relationship and don't allow it to thrive the way that it can. And so us being able to get to a place in our hearts where we apologize is a big deal. But what's happening is we feel less than, or we feel like we're losing if we give the apology. And we'll go into some things that are going to help you with that in a little bit. But um, you refusing to apologize is causing you so much, and it's your pride that's getting in the way and causing you an issue there. The second thing is you want to be right more than you really want to be happy sometimes. And I know, like, it seems like, well, if I am right, then that's going to make me happy. Well, pridefully, it might make you feel better in the moment, but long term, it's not giving you the relationship that you need to get to a different space. So it's so important for you to be right and to not be the one that's last in the relationship, as far as like, um, there's a mistake being made and um, I need to prove that I'm the one that didn't make the mistake, right? Instead of you thinking in your mind, like, I want to make sure that we're loving in this relationship, I want to create closeness in this relationship. Instead of that being your focus, it's more about like, I have to be right no matter what, and that's a pride scenario that's going on, and it's keeping you from having the kind of relationship that you can have, that means that you're actually connected. It's driving a wedge between the two of you. And then finally, the last thing that I'm seeing is we're just not getting to a place of vulnerability enough times. And one person that I admire that talks a lot about vulnerability is Brene Brown. And ultimately, that's the thing that gives us the ability to be closer to our partner than we are with anybody else. And so we're just not getting to these places. Okay. And so before we go into how we can change this around, let me just say, like, it's not that I don't get or understand that it's hard to do these things. I do get that. In fact, even understand why pride happens. Pride is a mark of weakness, and that's not something that I'm saying as a criticism. It's an important piece for us to understand that. Like, that pride is us protecting our ourselves, or somehow putting ourselves in a space where we don't get harmed even more. And so when we go to show up in prideful ways, our hearts are usually hardened, our minds are closed, And so the biggest thing that we're trying to do in those moments is just keep ourselves from getting hurt one more time in life. But I'll tell you that this practice of us being so prideful is a deep rooted issue that needs our attention and needs us to really focus differently. Because not only is it causing our relationship destruction, but it's really causing you destruction and eating you up on the inside. You probably won't even be aware of that part of it because you're so focused on protecting yourself in the relationship and trying not to experience hard things. But it makes sense that it's there, right? It does come from our weakness and us trying to protect ourselves. And so I think there's two roles inside of a relationship. One is for us to help our partner to not have to be prideful, and we do that by opening our mind and being soft with each other. But then the other thing is it takes a whole lot of bravery to not initiate pride stances and pride responses in our relationship. And so I know it's not easy. And I also know that you're not always actively choosing, like, oh, today I'm going to put my pride mask on and start interacting in a way that says I'm not apologizing, and I'm not going to end this argument. I'm going to get the last word. Like, I know that we're not doing it on purpose, and so our challenge is to really understand that it is something that's deep. It is something that is always for all of people, humanity, for a long time has been something that has caused people so much pain, um, and it has to change in your relationship for things to get better. Okay, and so how do we do that? What do we do to make the change? Well, there's three things that I think would be helpful. The first one is that, and if you go back and look at any of the things I've ever talked about, it's always be the first one. So in your mind, make a race for yourself to be the first one to interact in your relationship in a way that says that we are going to do good things here. I'm not going to be focused on the losing aspect of the relationship. I'm gonna be focused on the idea that I'm the first one to get things done, um, romantically, like whatever the scenarios require. I want you to always raise your hand and be the first one to do goodness in your relationship and to promote that kind of goodness in your relationship. The next thing is to make your focus in your relationship all about serving your partner. So we lose that focus a lot of times because we get to this idea that says, like, man, my partner can't be pleased, right? And yeah, I think that if you're trying to please your partner, you might get into a rut. But the truth is, what's available to you always is you constantly trying to serve your partner. How do you serve your partner the best? I think the best way for you to serve your partner is by being able to build yourself up so much, being able to create a different version of you that is compatible, a version of you that's focused, a version of you that is growing constantly, that's minded, that's open hearted, like soft hearted. Be creating that kind of scenario is the best kind of service that you can do. And so if you could kind of think in your mind, like, my job is not to put my partner in their place or correct them. My job is to be able to serve them at the highest possible level. So have that focus, and it's going to help you. And then finally, I think we started discussing like what the reasons are that we get prideful. You're gonna have to do your work around that. Like, it's not acceptable for you just to say, this is who I am. This is what I do. That's another pride statement, actually. And so what is acceptable though is for you to be saying, like, look, I promise I'm getting better, but I'm not just getting better for you. I'm getting better because I want to be better, and then I want you to have that as well. And so but I got to keep working at it. I'm not very good at this situation, whatever that situation is. And so don't let your um, don't let your pride be in the way of you doing the work that it's going to take for you to actually experience something different inside of your relationship. And part of that is because a lot of times these situations are just hooking us so much that we're more focused on how not to get hurt than we are on how to build our relationship. So it's that kind of shift over and focus that's really going to help us. So I think, what would be helpful if you guys put any kind of questions that you have, or any behaviors that you want to try to reflect on, go ahead and put those in the comments, and we can talk a little bit about those. But even if you don't want to put your stuff out there, that's fine too. I just want you to reflect on your own behaviors and think about your own experiences, and figure out, like, how do I unwind myself from being so prideful that I'm causing my relationship to be in a bad situation. And again, the best way for you to do that is to flip it inside out and to make sure that you're focused on growing you as much as possible, more than you would try to impose a need for your partner to go first and do things different before you decide, look, I'm going to be the first one to get things right in this relationship. All right, we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good day.